All right. Do, 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 do. We're gonna learn about Concord. Honestly, I did not keep up with Concord except for the fact that I know it's a bit of a failure. And by a bit of a failure, a massive failure. But I did not actually look into it at all. So this is the first thing I'm actually reading about and listening to. So Colin Moriarty, the godfather of PlayStation podcasts, is saying that they spoke extensively with someone who worked on Concord, and it's much worse than we think. And it cost $400 million. $400 million. Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, at least it went down in history as one of the fastest shut down live service games, I guess. Yeah? Uh-huh. So, yeah, let's see what exactly they talk about.
I wasn't going to ever talk about this game again. Because who really gives a shit? However, and I don't do...
Who really gives a shit? To be fair, he does have a point. I couldn't care less about the game. But at the same time, it's kind of funny, like, listening to the horror stories of someone that worked on it. So, I'll bite, curiosity. Curiosity killed a cat.
Journalism really anymore, as you guys know, and we talk about this a lot. I was a journalist at one time, and I used to break a lot of stories, and these days I don't really grind like that. So the stories that I break these days are usually people, always, not usually, always people coming to me. And someone who worked on Concord reached out to me, and I verified who this person was and went through all of that and talked to this person extensively, for a long time. Ooh. And got some, I think, interesting information that I can share about Concord. I think people will be interested about it. The reason that I wanted to talk about it is because some of the assumptions that I had made about the game were dead wrong as far as how much it cost and how much Sony really lost on it. So the big thing that you really need to know here about this is that Concord cost about $400 million to make.
That's still insane.
And
the part that's the most insane to me, I don't think I can really fathom just how much that is. It is a lot, right? It is incredible just how much it is. But like, if I stop to just think about it, it's like, I don't think in my lifetime I'll ever earn that. It's just like baffling. It's wow.
The story goes that Concord, by the time Concord was, so in the first quarter of 2023, Concord had basically entered an alpha state. This was before Sony had even purchased the team. But
wait,
Sony had...
wait. It entered? Wait, go back.
The story goes that Concord, by the time Concord was, so in the first quarter of 2023, Concord had basically...
Okay, so I did hear it right. I just wanted to make sure. In 2023, it entered alpha, and it was released in 2024 for a live service game? What the fudge? It's fudge, YouTube! Do not demonetize me for fudge!
Basically entered an alpha state. This was before Sony had even purchased the team. But Sony had been working with Probably Monsters, and which was the original owner of Firewalk and Firewalk, probably since late 2020, maybe 2021 at the latest on Concord. The game was in development before that. Up to the point that the game went into alpha state, they had already spent about $200 million on it.
PreAlpha! Oh my god. I mean, that is so much money, but like, before you even entered alpha, what took them so long to enter alpha? What the heck were they doing?
And
also,
it's unclear how much of that money is from Probably Monsters and the original investors into the game, and how much of that money was from Sony. There's this term in product development, not only with games, but really with everything. You can like manufacture a tchotchke. You guys might have heard of it. It's called minimum viability, or a minimum viable product.
Yeah.
The idea behind this, or MVP, the idea behind this is that this is like what you're trying to achieve. And it's like, once you cross this barrier, you feel comfortable selling it. It's not that it's the best it can be, or that it's what it's going to be by the time you launch it, because there's all sorts of extra stuff you do to it. But like, this is the minimum viability. of the product.
Yeah, it's like when people start seeing it as an actual product and you can like, and they're willing to trust you with it. It's kind of like a playable prototype that's like bare bones, but like ready to kind of go out there.
When the game had already had $200 million spent on it and was basically in an alpha form in Q1 of 2023, from that point until the game launched, Sony spent another $200 million on it. The scuttlebutt behind the scenes about Concord is that the game was in a laughable shape when it was shown, and basically like when the alpha was ready to go and they were kind of being like, we're ready to kind of get moving towards getting this thing out in the next year or two. It was in such horrible shape that Sony felt like they needed to spend that much money again. So, 200 plus 200 to get the game to the MVP status, not to the status of it being like a great game.
Now, here's the part that like it baffles me, because like you would have thought by at this point people would realize that you can't just throw money at it. That's not how it works. You can like throw money and hire more people, but like you're still gonna have a certain slowness to the process if you're like to go properly, right? To go through the motions, to go through each step of development. It's like there's only so many people that can work on something simultaneously, and throwing money at it, like hiring more people, isn't going to actually do anything to help your product. Infinite growth. Burn money. Yeah, it doesn't work like that, man. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's because I have a background and I have a master's degree in computer science, and like I made my own apps and software, and the fact that I also worked in the gaming industry and I've been through the entire like process of like development, quality testing, quality assurance, funding process for projects. Like I've been through the motions of all of this, but like I don't think my background in it has anything to do with my understanding of just you can't throw money to a problem to solve it. At one point, it just doesn't work anymore. There's like a ceiling to it. It's kind of like having a bakery and going like, we can't keep up with demand. Okay, just get more ovens. But you're like, there's no more space for ovens. And they look at you and go like, just buy more ovens. And you just stare at them going like, okay, that's not the solution, but okay. Yeah, it's common sense that you can't just throw money at it. Especially in a window of 1 year. You go into an alpha. You can't release a live service game from alpha to a finished product with good quality in 1 year. It's impossible. Like, I don't know who managed to convince the board of investors to convince them. I don't know who went, we can do this, guys. But like, holy shit. That person really managed to like bullshit his way through things.
To get it to just viability. And that at that time in Q1 2023, there was nothing done. Like a major expense was having to urgently outsource much of the game to other studios to finish building the game out. And that two fundamental things were not worked on at all.
At this point, just God damn it. Why would you redeem personality with At this point, just admit that you're just throwing the money out and like laundering it. Like what the heck, man? Oh, disjointed parts of people working on different parts and having studios trying to work on something not together and just trying to patch it like a Frankenstein monster.
Up to the point in which the game was shown in alpha. Onboarding, nothing about that. No, like there was nothing about how players get on, like how they make their character, all that kind of stuff, or choose their character and get there. And monetization, two very expensive, very specific and boutique things that happen to games like this. And so
honestly, like maybe this is controversial, but the fact that there wasn't monetization thought of is a good sign, in my opinion. It's a good sign for consumers because it means the game wasn't designed with monetization in mind. It's a bad thing for the company, mind you, because yeah, they need to make their money. somehow, right? But it's, yeah, hot take. I think the fact that they did not focus on monetization was fine, and definitely not what caused the downfall or like the shit show that is happening right here.
That's the first thing that I wanted to say, is that
With
it's not only about the
Concord.
ongoing costs, which would be in the millions to keep the game going per month, but that the game cost about $400 million to make, soup to nuts. Sony put most of that money in, and it is not only so, because we had kind of said like this must be Sony's biggest loss ever on a game, and it is. It's the biggest game Sony's ever released from a budgetary standpoint from the first party or second party. So let that sink in.
It's crazy.
And it's totally unintuitive. There are games that are in development right now at Sony first and second party that are more expensive than this. But as of the games that have come out so far, so think about like Spider-Man 2 and so on and so forth. We know The Last of Us Part 2 cost $220 million. Spider-Man 3 is going to cost about $350 million. This game costs more than that. And they lost all of it because they made no money. They made about $1 million gross revenue, and then they gave it all back. So this is a huge, multiple hundreds of millions of dollar loss. Now, the question is, why? Why did this happen? This game was heavily championed.
I wonder, like, if necessarily that's indeed a full loss, because I'm pretty sure they can take parts of it and like move assets across and reuse them and recoup some of their loss. It was definitely a good, how should I put it, a good wake up call in terms of like selling products to someone and how they went about research. It was a very expensive life lesson, but hey, they can afford it.
Behind the scenes. Now we know this because Sony ended up, what's funny is that the game is presented in Q1 2023 as this, you know, we're kind of getting towards the end. The game is nowhere near being done. It's in a horrible position. And then Sony buys the team. The idea behind this was, and
you can reuse the parts. It all depends on how they couple you have your code. Yeah, that's the thing, right? They had different teams working on different parts and having like a Frankenstein of a game. Hence why, like, I'm pretty sure that they can reuse parts of it because of that. Because they had to work individually and separate within 1 year.
The term apparently verbatim had been used that Concord is the future of PlayStation.
Interesting.
That they had such major ambition for this game.
The future of PlayStation. Well, it's accurate. Sorry. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
That it was referred to internally as a Star Wars-like project for Sony. That it can be repeatedly revisited over and over and over again, not only in cross-media, but in what we were seeing. We've already kind of seen little bits of it. So the weekly story vignettes that they were going to release, and then, of course, the inclusion in Amazon's Secret Levels anthology, that's like just scratching the surface of it. Ironically, the game was codenamed Chaos behind the scenes.
Chaos is actually a very fitting name given that what happened. But honestly, like, no offense, Sony definitely deserves a slap in the face. They have it way too good for way too long, and they keep pulling shit on people and disrespecting consumers, disrespecting people in general with everything that they're doing. So, like, I have no love for Sony, no sympathy for them.
And a major thing about the game is that there was, and I think we can kind of get this vibe from just the nature of the people making it and kind of the way the game reads and all that, a toxic positivity vibe. You weren't allowed to say anything, apparently internally, about this game. About how, like, something's wrong with it, character designs are not right, and so on and so forth. They really, truly believe this was Herman Hulst's baby, apparently.
That is absolutely terrible. The fact that you had to be in an echo chamber where you couldn't actually bring up any critique is really, really, really bad, especially when it comes to a fresh IP and a new design, right? Oof. Not a fan of Sony. No, there is no love between me and Sony. They do things so wrong, and they are notorious for how they treat people and how they want to segregate gaming and how they want people to use their platforms exclusively, and I do not like that. I believe that if you want people to use your products, you should make your products good enough so that people want to use them. Not force them with exclusivity, not force them with inability to access them in any other shape or form, not limit you to regions, not force you to have accounts for everything. Like, there is a limit to how much I will tolerate as a consumer. And Sony kind of, I think last year, kind of, they went way too high up on annoying levels. It's like, I had a PlayStation. I had a PlayStation 2. It was great. I have not really, like, I have a PlayStation 4 that I probably should have never bought. But I do have it because there were certain games that are on it that I did want to play. But yeah, for the most part, like, I stopped giving them money and I stopped buying into the whole, it's exclusive, and putting up with it. It's just annoying. Yes, the games are good. The games are good. Don't get me wrong. But their approach to it is atrocious. Like, their practices are atrocious. So at one point, kind of like the same thing that I did with Blizzard, at one point I just snapped and I went, I'm done. I'm not going to support it anymore.
And he internally was himself a massive champion of the game. So it's not that. So the reason I'm telling you all of this, it's some interesting information, of course, but it's that I had said when people were like, Concord lost $200 million. Now, people were pulling that money out because that's basically how much like some of the first party games like Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us Part 2, etc., kind of cost in that frame. And I was like, there's no way that it costs that much. I was saying like it cost 9 figures, probably like low $100 million, but there's no way it cost $200 million. No, it cost $400 million.
If you had to choose between PlayStation and PC, which would you prefer? Me personally, PC, because I'm not a console person and I don't do controllers. Like, I'm notoriously bad at controllers, mostly because I refuse to take the 1 week to learn them. But the majority of people, if I had to guess, I would say most people prefer the console, honestly. Like, it's cheaper, it's more convenient, it's easier to transport when you go away somewhere. It's easier to just sit and play, like just sit down on your couch, relax and play. Yeah, I would say consoles are definitely more friendly, especially with families, yeah. But yeah. Me personally, I'm a PC person. So hi Nomad, welcome in. Also hi Blue.
So, and I am totally solid on this source, by the way. So that's why I'm willing to share it with you. Because again, I'm not really a journalist. So
like, it baffles me over the fact that you weren't allowed to say anything negative or bad. Like, it is shocking to me that you can't criticize it. I've worked with people like that. I've worked with a developer that wouldn't take any feedback, that wouldn't take any type of criticism, right? Despite it being constructive. To put it into perspective in the nicest way possible, the guy pretty much, when I informed him of certain things that need to be resolved for release, he told me to go F myself in the database on the main channels, and that I am beneath his station and I do not have the right to comment on his vision. So let's just say the game didn't do well at all. But yeah, this type of people are very hard to work with. It is extremely oppressive and annoying to work with because it feels like you work on something that's pointless. You work on a project that you can't give it your all, you can't be excited about, you can't really express yourself in the project, right? You can't relate to it either. So you're forced to do something you hate. So you're probably not going to put too much effort into whatever you're doing either. So it really sucks to hear that they couldn't even bring up anything.
Yeah, the big things to take away: $400 million loss. The game was in horrible shape as of 18 months ago before release. Not even monetization, no onboarding, most content not even there. The game was in such bad shape at that point that they spent the budget of it again in urgent outsourcing to get the game finished from all of these different angles over an 18-month period. Internally, the game was considered part of the future of PlayStation with heavy cross-media references and a system of toxic positivity surrounding it that didn't allow anyone to meaningfully change the course of the game. Because
it really sucks.
If the people at the top truly believe in something, you're not going to be able to do much about that. I don't think, from the trenches. So
unfortunately,
people would be interested in that, and just wanted to throw that out there. That Star Wars really apparently, or I'm sorry, Sony really saw this as a Star Wars-like project for them, like the potential to, and now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Not only why they spent so much money on it, but why they bought the team. So there
Yeah.
are people there, and to me, it's unclear who exactly the people are.
It makes sense that you want to invest and have a new IP, because one of the top comments when it comes to people modifying old IP, right, is why don't you make your own? And it's completely valid, because we all hate the fact that they're butchering our franchises and like our favorite characters and transforming them into something else and changing them just so that they fit the new standards, right? So it makes sense that they want a new IP that is fresh and a live service to capture the youth, right? And to really nail on that path. Unfortunately, apparently they really suck at their market. Whoever did their market research and their designs clearly didn't do enough in terms of actual research. But damn, it's very curious to take such a game and see why exactly it's failing.
I know some of the names. I don't want to get too deep into that because a lot of the things I learned were off the record, but obviously this is on background.
Yeah. Like, it's not just a new IP. Like, that's the thing that I'm saying. They need a new IP that is a live service because they need to get their claws into the youth that is playing Fortnite. You have Roblox, you have Fortnite, you have Valorant, you have League still. Even League, like, and Dota are still played by like the young people. You have Overwatch too. Like, all of those are taking a huge slice and they want in on that. And the best way to go for it is to capture the young audience they're going to be your clients for the next 10 years, right? Everyone that's like 30, 35 plus, you're already on the down low of not really being the main audience anymore. Like, you're kind of expired in terms of marketing and clients. They don't care. They want the young people now.
And it's like, yeah, now it makes a little more sense. You spent, and by the way, the $400 million not included in how much it cost to buy the team.
Jesus, crazy.
So yeah, so Concord is Sony's biggest released game by budget to date, and it is the biggest loss that they've ever had as a company on a project before.
Yeah, it's actually very interesting to try and dissect Concord like that. But yeah, people really, I agree with you there, Craig. People really do not get live services. They don't understand that it is very hard to convince someone that's already hooked on a live service to give your game a chance. And that you can't compete in the same way with everything else because guess what? They already invested in something else. Like, someone that played Overwatch, well, Overwatch is a bad example because Overwatch is literally killing themselves and they're shooting themselves in the leg constantly. So they're bleeding players just because they're incapable. But like, let's take Overwatch, right? If you're invested in Overwatch, you already spent hundreds of dollars in skins and playing it and getting every single pass and everything. You're already hooked. You're in the FOMO. You don't want to miss out. You kind of like, you just keep on going, right? You're too invested into it. So like, if you bring a game and you're like, well, it's kind of like that, but worse, you're not gonna get people. MMO Gold Rush all over again. Yeah, exactly. Concord.